are. I'm going to share my screen for the presentation. Right. I believe you can see a PowerPoint slide which says ISO 9001 2015 awareness. Right. Can somebody please confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
All right. Thank you. Great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this awareness session for ISO 9001 2015. Some of you might have attended this earlier, so this is a refresher for you. And those who have recently or newly joined RHS group or were not aware of what ISO is, so it hopefully this session will be beneficial for you. Now, this is a very basic awareness of what ISO is and what is 9001. This is not going to make you an expert in the subject matter. It's just for your basic awareness. So, to begin the session, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Urvashi Sareen. Uh, I am a lead auditor for ISO 9001, 14,001, 45,001, various standards, more standards which are for environment, health and safety, IT, information security, even sustainability, asset management, energy management. So quite a lot of standards. I am a lead auditor, internal auditor, and I've been practicing for the last more than 10 years, maybe 11 or 12 years. Qualification wise, I'm a Master of Business Administration from University of Sheffield, and my bachelor's was in business as well. It's Bachelor's of Business from London School of Economics. And the team is headed by our Managing Director, Mr. Surinder Sareen. By qualification, he's a chartered accountant and also a lead auditor for various ISO standards. Both of us are also assessors for Dubai Quality Award, which is by the government of Dubai. Some of you might be aware of that. And we are supported by a team of document controllers and uh, BBAs, MBAs, and chartered accountants. So that's about ourselves, and the company was established in the year 2004. We are here as consultants to help various organizations in managing and implementing their ISO standards. Right. So, why are we talking about ISO? Going by this cartoon, I mean, what I want to convey is that if we don't have a management system in our organization, if we don't go by the latest ways of managing our day-to-day work, we will lose out like these poor dinosaurs who missed the boat of Noah and they have become extinct. So a little bit of context to why we need the ISO awareness is to be up to date and to be able to know have a management system which will help us in our day-to-day work at the organization at the RHS group. Right, to begin, what is ISO? Well, it started with only quality control somewhere in 1979, where they said that no defective part should go out of the factories, manufacturing industries. So they were about detecting the bad quality products or parts in assembly line. Over the years, when it came to late 80s, 90s, and the year 2000, it moved down to quality assurance, where they said we want to prevent a bad quality product itself. Why should we just focus on detection of bad quality parts or products? Why don't we prevent uh, bad quality parts entering our assembly line? So a lot of quality checks on the suppliers giving in parts, right? So that was the focus in the year 1980 to 2000. And from 2008, 2005 onwards, we started moving towards a management system itself, wherein quality became an integral part of not just QC department, but the entire organization, procurement or recruitment, HR or administration or operations. Uh, Customer care. So from those years, we moved on to what is known as quality management. So this is a brief timeline about ISO 9000, how it started. And ISO, now what does ISO mean is the International Organization for Standardization. Now, ideally, it should be called IOS, but it's called ISO because the word Isos, ISOS. In Greek, it means equal. So the intention of ISO organization itself was to have equality across borders, equality across nations in terms of trading. A lot of trade started in the 19th and the earlier 20th centuries, wherein the Industrial Revolution had just started and a lot of cross-border trade started happening at that time. So, sorry, I have to pause in between to admit a few people coming in. Right. All right. Sorry for that brief pause. So, like I was saying, a lot of industrial revolution, cross-border trade started happening in the 19th and the 20th century, wherein people wanted that a product which is manufactured in the US should be usable in a country, let's say in India or in UK or in Europe or in Vietnam. So that was the intention of ISO in laying standards, which could be sort of a guideline to organizations across borders so that they could freely trade and have the same systems across. Now, this is an organization which is headquartered in Geneva in Switzerland. And to date, I mean, it has released somewhere around more than 22,000 various standards. Now, what does a standard mean? Basically, a standard provides requirements, it provides specifications or guidelines that can be consistently used to ensure that your products, materials, processes, services, they are fit for the purpose that they are intended for. Right. So if you say that a pencil is supposed to write on paper, so that is a standard will lay out steps or guidelines or specifications as to what should be the length of the pencil, what should be the thickness of the lead inside the pencil, and what how it should feel on touch. So there are various guidelines or specifications which a standard will be laying down. Now, when you write a standard, you write ISO 9001 colon 2015. How do you decipher it? So ISO is the issuing body. The standard ID is 9001, and 2015 is the year it was last issued in, right? So earlier versions of ISO 9001 were I'm missing that slide. So we had that earlier versions in 2000, ISO 9001 2000, ISO 9001 2008, and now we are on the latest revision, which is ISO 9001 2015. Right. Now, all across various standards, like 45,001 is for health and safety, 14,001 is for environment management. All across these standards, ISO is never going to tell you how to do your work. You are all experts, specialists in your field of work. You know how to run an admin department, you know how to run a marine shipping imports and exports section, you know how to do logistics operation. So you're all experts in your relevant field. So ISO is never going to tell you how you do your work. Only it will say is what you have to do. So it will tell you that, for example, you need to do a quality check before sending the product out to the customer. So this is the what which ISO will define. How you do the quality check, it's not going to say that. That is totally customizable or dependent on your organization. Now, from the first cartoon slide that we saw, why linking it from there, why do we need to implement an ISO standard? Why is it important for us to catch that boat and not be left out and be extinct in the business community? So the number one reason is because it gives credibility to your business. It improves your business's image, market image. It's a good marketing tool when you go out in the market and you say that you are a 9001 certified organization. It adds to your brand value, right? It also helps to ensure that your stakeholders are satisfied, your various interested parties are taken care of. It also helps in better process integration, alignment to the mission of the organization. You know, you set out your day-to-day task, your action plans based on certain processes and the objectives or sorry, mind you, there for a typo on the slide, it's not objection, it is objectives. So you sort of get aligned to what the organization wants to achieve. There is a system, there's a process to achieve going about achieving those objectives. And also it helps in making decisions based on evidences, based on facts, and not random, uh, you know, giving benefits to your known people. It helps in making decisions based on analysis and facts. Right. Now, what are the documents that you come across in ISO standards? At the top, you have something called as a manual, or in your organization, we call it a quality manual. Then you have policies, for example, quality policy, or let's say anti-bribery policy. So you have various policies which are documented in an organization. In RHS group, we also have something called as annexures at times, or these are various supporting documents in addition to the manual and the policies. Then we have procedures. Now, procedures are step-by-step documented way of how you have decided of doing a certain process. For example, you have a process or a procedure for documentation. You have a procedure for marketing. You have a procedure for import documentation. You have a procedure for export operations or for warehousing. Right, so you have various procedures wherein you have laid down that this is the way we do warehousing, or this is the way we do marketing. So you've laid down bullet points or a flow chart of how you do your work. Supporting those procedures, you have various forms which you fill from time to time, and then they are called records. Based on those records, you make your decisions. Right. Now, what do you have to do? Why is it important for people like you? Why is it not for managers and not for the top management? So, what do you have to do? What's in it for you? The first thing is you have to understand what are the policies and the procedures of the organization so that you are able to contribute well to the company's mission, to the company's vision, to the company's objectives and targets. So become aware and understand what are the policies and what are the procedures that have been laid in the organization in the RHS group. And of course, when you understand those procedures, you'll be better able to comply or implement those policies and procedures, and that too consistently. Right? Consistency is very important here. Next, become aware that your output is an input to one of your colleagues, one of your stakeholders, or interested parties, right? So, what you do is very important. And in fact, it is your output is actually an input to somebody else in your organization or outside your organization. So, become aware of the entire start to end procedure in your organization. How does who receives a customer inquiry, how what happens next after receiving the inquiry, when does the work come to me, and when does the customer responsibility end, basically what is the end of the entire process. Does it end when the shipment reaches the destination? Does it end when the money comes to the RHS group? When does the entire process end? So work doesn't end. Become aware that work doesn't end when you have finished your work. No, work ends after somebody else has also finished their work. So what you do is actually a starting point for somebody else in your organization. This is very important to understand, right? Also understand what are the targets or objectives of the organization and how you are contributing from your day-to-day work to achieving those objectives. It's not that you come to office or you log in every day remotely and you finish at a certain point and the work is done. You have to become aware of the bigger picture in the organization and what the organization is trying to achieve by hiring you and by putting you in that position, right? Become aware also of what happens when you don't comply to the policies and procedures. It's called a non-conformity, and or somebody else in the organization is not able to achieve, or a customer reports a concern. So report such non-conformities or issues or concerns. And lastly, most importantly, what you have to do is you have to share ideas, you have to share your feedback. We have to make the organization grow and move forward. We cannot be stuck at old ways of doing things. We have to improve. So, most importantly, you have to be open and you have to freely share your ideas and feedback. Right. Now, what is the end-to-end, like we were talking, become aware of the entire process. So ISO, what is the entire process of ISO? How do you get certification, right? So the parties, first we have to understand who are the parties that are involved in getting an ISO certified certification, sorry. So the first thing is the client, that is yourself. You are the client. RHS Group is the client, or RHS Abu Dhabi or Mersa United. You are the client at the first level. The second level is the consultant and the trainer, which is us, KC International. We are the ones who are helping you prepare all the documentation and making you aware of what ISO is, what are the requirements. We are the ones training you. The third level are the certification body. For example, in your case, it is Bureau Veritas. Now, they are the ones who are auditing and confirming that you are complying to the requirements of ISO 9001. And they are the ones who are issuing your certificate, right? Now, on top of them, you don't come across, you don't interact with them, are the accreditation body, right? Now, accreditation body, in your case, when you see Bureau Veritas certificate, it will have a logo which will say UCAS. So this is UK, United Kingdom Accreditation System, right? UCAS. So they are auditors of Bureau Veritas. They are the ones confirming that Bureau Veritas or any other certification body, they are not simply, selling certificates for the sake of making money in the market. They are actually performing an audit, right? Now, above all of them, above the accreditation body is the International Accreditation Forum. There are various accreditation bodies in the world, right? So you have from UK, you have from Europe, you have from USA. All of them report to IAF, and IAF itself reports to the one in Geneva who lays the standards, ISO. What are the stages of achieving certification? First things, you have to become aware what is the standard you are applying for. What does it say? ISO 9001, what's it about? The second thing, you have to prepare documentation to show that you are complying to the requirements of the standard. And third step is the implementation, wherein whatever documents you have prepared, you have to start filling those documents, you have to start implementing those documents. You cannot say that I have a customer complaint form, but it is empty, right? You have to implement, you have to actually record the concerns, the complaints, the issues your customers face or report or raise to you, and you have to fill it in the customer complaint form. So that is called implementation. Once you've done with the implementation, you will have internal audit, or you will have readiness to review whether you can face the certification auditors. So your fifth step then comes that the certification audit happens, right? Now your certificate is valid for 3 years, and every year they come for a surveillance audit. So you have to regularly ensure that you are implementing whatever documents you have prepared, or whatever management system you have laid down, or the procedures that have been established. You have to continually implement them. That's why every surveillance, every year, they will confirm that the company is implementing the management system. Right? Now, before we go on to what actually is ISO 9001, there are few things which we call as principles, which on a day-to-day basis, every one of you have to ensure. Right? So the first one is customer focus. Keep in mind that it is the customer who is actually giving you the business, right? So you have to keep him in mind. You have to ensure that the company is fulfilling the customer's requirements, and not just fulfilling the basic customer requirements, but actually you are striving to exceed their expectations. When one thing is basic meeting of the requirements, he said, I want the shipment to go from point A to point B, but it's another thing when you exceed his expectations. If you've said that it will take maybe 7 to 10 working days, but you've managed to somehow put his cargo in an earlier shipment, and it has gone within 3 to 5 working days. So this is where you strive, you try to find out ways, different ways in which you can exceed their expectations. Now, I'm just giving some few examples, but you are a better judge in your day-to-day operations, in your day-to-day work, of knowing how you can meet the customer's expectations, and how you can strive to exceed their expectations. The second thing we all need to know is that s- it's just not the general manager or the director who is a leader in the organization. All of you at your respective levels are also leaders, right? Leadership is something wherein you define the direction, or you give a purpose, and you create good working environment, and you achieve the objectives of the organization. So that is leadership. If you are contributing to achieving an objective which has been laid by the management, right? So you are a leader by in your own capacity, at your own level. So be aware that it's not just the general manager or the manager or the director at the top who is responsible for leadership, right? Linking to this, if you are a leader at your level, what you have to ensure is that you engage people around you. You empower them if they are reporting to you or if your colleagues are working in alignment with you. So you empower your colleagues, you empower your team members, you engage them in various activities, you delegate work to them, you ensure that they are competent, they are receiving trainings from time to time, right? So keep these things in mind on your day-to-day level working operations. The next important principle is process approach. You have to, like I mentioned earlier, you have to understand that where is the starting point in the organization and where is the end point in the organization. Your work, your activity is only one chunk in the entire big process. So you have to understand the entire step-by-step process and activities and what are the different interrelated processes. Your output is the input of another person in the organization, right? So be aware of the entire process. Now, an example for the next principle improvement is what I can explain is, for example, Kodak, right? So films, the negative films we used to have when we used to click pictures, they are no longer relevant. They now Kodak at this time is out of business because they did not improve, right? Another example is Xerox. Now, when a company tries to stay at a level where they say that what we have been doing since the past 10 years is the right thing, they will be out of business very soon, right? So you have to ensure one thing, that you maintain your current level of performance. You don't go down from your current levels of performance. Second, you have to also ensure is that you react to the changes that are happening around you. Are there more competitors coming in your industry? Is the technology improving? Is there something new that can replace a manual process? Is there some new regulation that has come about? So become aware of the changes that are happening internally within your organization as well as external to your organization. And also, the third thing that you have to ensure is that you create new opportunities from time to time so that you move beyond your current level of performance. The next principle is evidence-based decision making. Now, on a daily basis, each and every one of you are making some sort of decisions, right? Which supplier to have, which product to introduce, or which ship, what timing, how much load to take on, right? Or when is the expiry of a certain document, whether to renew it or not. So different decisions you are taking on a daily basis. Now, keep in mind these decisions should be based on facts. They should be based on analysis and evaluation of the data which is in front of you, of the information which is in front of you. And they shouldn't be based on, oh, last year, this person gave me good discount, so I should favor him. Have your facts on paper, have your analysis. Did he, even if he gave you a good discount, your supplier, did he perform well? Did he deliver on time? Right? Does he have a good contract with me? Does he give me the good regular maintenance that I need? So make your decisions based on facts, based on analysis, based on evaluations, and not on your personal thought process or personal relationship with that particular supplier, for example. And since we are talking about relationship, the last principle or important factor which we have to ensure in our day-to-day routine is that we manage our relationship with all our interested parties. At times, the customer is very irritated and he complains about very meager things, or it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault, and the customer tries to put a blame on you. So keep in mind that you have to be customer focused. You have to manage your relationships. Uh, Sometimes your colleagues, right, they don't cooperate, and you are in a bad position. Sometimes your supplier is not delivering on time. So you are the best judge of how to manage that situation and manage that relationship. It's important to manage all your interested parties. Now, what are these interested parties? What are these stakeholders? There are five kinds of interested parties broadly we can classify. First is the top management, of course. They are the ones who are establishing this organization or running this organization since a long time. So, top management. The second category is your customers who are giving you the business. The third category of people who are interested in your organization are your colleagues or the employees, right? They are the ones who are actually carrying out the work that needs to be delivered to the customers. And the fourth category, you can say, of interested parties or stakeholders are your suppliers or your external providers. Now, here your suppliers can mean any agents, any subcontractors, any consultants, product suppliers, service suppliers, right? So, anybody who is giving you an input, who is giving you some sort of an input to do your work, those are your external providers or your suppliers, right? The last category you can classify is the government or the regulatory authorities. So you deal with port authorities, you deal with customs, you deal with ISO, you deal with certification bureau veritas, consultants, you deal with the airport. So different kinds of government authorities or DED for licensing, right? So these are your government or the regulatory authorities. So these are your five broad categories of interested parties with whom you have to ensure that you are managing your relationships. So I'm going to skip this because I've explained you a lot of times that you have to follow a process approach and your output is in fact the input of somebody else. What is important here is that you keep giving feedback, right? And understand that a lot of processes run simultaneous to one another. Now, another important thing before we get on to the requirements of ISO 9001 is the Deming model of Plan, Do, Check, Act, PDCA. So, what this says is that you plan before beginning any task, you plan. So, as we go along in this presentation, you'll know what these terms mean. So in the planning stage, what we want you to do is establish what do you deal in, what is your strength, what is your weakness, what are your threats, what are your opportunities, right? In what environment you operate, what are your customers' expectations, what are the processes you need to meet those expectations, who is going to be responsible for what are the targets, timelines that you need to set? What are the risks that will happen? if we do a certain course of action, and how do we control or minimize those risks? What are the resources that we need? So this is all the planning that we have to do, right? And the do next part is that you implement whatever you have planned, your plans, your action plans that you have established. You now actually do what you have planned. The next check part, you have to monitor. So very often what happens is people plan and people do, and they stop. Nobody goes and checks whether you performed as per the plan, right? You have to measure, you have to monitor, you have to analyze your actual results versus the planned objectives. And once you have checked, you have to act, you have to revise, you have to improve your plans, so that the next time, either if you have not been able to achieve your objectives, your targets, so what is it the next time you will do so that you can achieve these objectives, or how you can perform better in the next cycle, right, in the next quarter or in the next year. So this is the PDCA cycle. Coming to ISO 9001, right? This is the main crux or the core, the center of today's training. What is ISO 9001? It's a standard which will lay down the requirements of quality management. It helps your business to be more efficient and improve the satisfaction of the customers. Now, lots of terms here. First of all, what is quality, right? Because it's laying down the requirements of quality management system. And second, how does it help you to become more efficient, or how does it help you to improve customer satisfaction? Now, coming to the first thing, quality. Quality, it doesn't mean that in for example, in cars, in vehicles, Rolls-Royce is a quality vehicle. In watches, a Rolex watch or a Rado watch is a quality watch, right? It doesn't mean the best. It just means to what degree is that product fulfilling the requirements of the customer, right? Quality means degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill the requirements, right? The extent to which you are fulfilling the needs and expectations of your customers. For example, if a person walks into Sharaf DG and says that I need a mobile phone, so there are various mobile phones which are available now. If the customer just needs a phone to make calls, there is one set of mobile phone which can be given to him, and then he can say that no, I'm not satisfied. I didn't get a quality product. So then you ask, what is exactly your requirement? Then the customer says, oh, I need a phone on which I can send messages, or on which I can do video calls. So then you understand that, oh, he needs a smartphone, right, where he can make video calls, where he has WhatsApp or BOTIM facilities. So it's the degree to which you understand and the requirements, first of all, of your customers. What do they want? And to what extent you are fulfilling those requirements, right? So in order to achieve this quality output being delivered to your customer, the entire journey, that is called a quality management system, right? So a quality management system is putting together all the processes which will meet your customers' requirements, and not only your customer requirements, but also your other stakeholders' requirements, needs, and expectations. And in addition, it will help you to continually improve and not become stagnant like Kodak or Xerox, right? Quality management system will ensure that your products and services, they satisfy your customers' needs and expectations. They give a particular product or a service consistently, meeting all those applicable requirements. And also they enhance, the management system enhances the stakeholder satisfaction. Right. These were the revisions, the slide that I was missing earlier. These were the revisions which ISO itself, 9001 itself has undergone. It's not that the standard was released in 1987 and that's the same requirement which we are following today. Since 1987 to 2015, it has undergone 3 to 4 revisions, right? So they are updating themselves from time to time. All right, coming to the main requirements of ISO 9001. Before I go on, are there any questions so far of what we have covered? Have I put everybody to sleep? Hello, do we have attendance here?
So far, no doubts. So clear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. With regard to Trident, I have two more colleagues who's Isaac and Vishnu who've joined as well. So I guess the burden's off my shoulders now. Thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
but
Good to know.
That's all good. Yes, perfect.
So far, any questions or clarifications?
One more time with regard to the based on the evidences.
All right. Okay, I'll come to that when we come to one of the requirements in ISO, or once we confirm all the requirements. There are 10 requirements in ISO 9001. So as and when we go through those requirements, I will be covering how you make evidence-based decisions. Is that okay, Mr. Asif?
Yeah, fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Sandhya, you have your hand up. Is there any questions you have? Isaac, you also have raised your hand. Is there any question at your end?
Yes, please. I just wanted to ask about something that I probably may have missed or I've not seen, but I was interested in hearing your input in that regard. It's about conflict management. At some point, usually whenever there is customer to the organization and then delivery of service, usually it gets to a point whereby there's dispute. And at our level, I just wanted to hear your advice and what's your opinion in that, where now situations get out of hand and customer is disputing and we have to solve. So could you touch or say something in that regard so that I can pick up and we could see how it's usually handled by ISO standard?
All right. Thanks, Isaac, for that question. It's a very interesting question, and we face this situation, all of us, from time to time in our routine work. So now the first thing that I'd like to say is that handling customer complaints, and especially customers who are adamant or who don't understand the situation, why the situation has occurred. So this itself is another topic of training and discussion. This is one thing, but to quickly answer it, we have to break down the situation. We have to understand what is, first of all, the complaint of the customer. And then we have to do a little bit of investigation. We have to understand why. We have to ask the question at least 3 to 5 times why that situation has happened. So, for example, if a customer says that the shipment has been delayed, right? The ship has already sailed and my cargo was not on that ship. So you have to ask the question, why did the ship sail without the customer's cargo on that ship, right? So you understand that from your investigation, let's say, for example, that the ship already got full, right? So again, you ask the question, why did the ship get full without this customer's uh, load on that? What were your booking team estimates? Why were they wrong? Again, you keep investigating further and further till you get to the base root cause of that situation. Why actually that situation arose? That is number one step, is to find out the root cause, the base of the base root cause. The second step then is, what can you immediately do so that the customer stops shouting and this customer doesn't leave your organization and goes to another competitor. So you have to figure out what is the immediate solution you can provide to him. Maybe you can waive off a few charges, some tariffs, or you can give him some discount, or you can give him another extra kg of allowance. So you have to figure out what immediate correction you can do to calm him down. The third step is that you find out, now deal with the root cause that you found out initially. So how can you prevent this root cause, this cause of the problem, from happening again in the future or to another customer, right? So you try to manage the cause of that problem itself, right? Most of the times we try to close the customer complaint as soon as possible, just managing to ensure that this customer doesn't leave our organization and go to a competitor, or just stops complaining, right? Most of the times we stop there. But when we actually deal with the root cause so that it doesn't happen again, that's when we sort of try to manage things in the organization in a better manner. The next step to handling a irritated customer is to ensure that you've dealt with this root cause, you've ensured that the preventive action has been taken, but you have to communicate, right? So communication is very important. You have to let the customer know that we found out this was the cause of the problem. Even though we've offered you an immediate solution, we've loaded your cargo onto the next available ship, for example. So, but this was the cause of the problem, and this is what we have done in our organization to improve our process. Or we've communicated with the port authority, we've communicated with the shipment agency, or ship itself, line itself. So what is the communication you have done and how you have tried to ensure that this problem doesn't occur again? Make the customer aware also, right? One thing, communicate with the customer. Second, communicate within the team, right? Make the staff members, make all the people who are involved in handling that customer or that shipment, make them aware of what they need to be careful about. So communications in two channels: one, customer; second, your team, your employees, your colleagues; and thirdly, if any supplier is also involved, so communicate with that supplier. Tell them point blank that we are a ISO certified company, we have a way of doing things, And this situation which has happened is not acceptable to us, and we don't want this to happen again in the future. So if this keeps happening, keeps repeating, we will be in a situation where we will not be able to continue business with you, right? So communication is very important. And last thing, of course, is to ensure that whatever preventive action you decided, you record that. If it requires a change of procedure, a change in the way things are being done, record it, document it, right? So in the shortest possible time that I could explain, I hope, Isaac, I have answered your question.
You have
And
answered the question. Thank you very much. And I
right.
was actually taking notes, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome. And we'll be covering more details of handling customer complaints and concerns in another training. In the time up to December, we will be covering this topic. Right? So any other questions, or I'd like to move on to the rest half of the presentation. And we can cover the remaining questions after the second half of the presentation. So coming to the main requirements of ISO 9001-2015, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, PDCA cycle, which we saw earlier, can be applied to the requirements of 9001 itself. So I'm going to point on the screen now. So your inputs are your customer requirements, right? Your environment that you operate in, who are your competitors, what are your threats to the organization, what are your internal weaknesses, what are your internal strengths. So these are your inputs. Additionally, the needs and expectations of your other interested parties as well. So these three things form an input to your processes. So based on these three things, you do your planning. Planning is clause number 6 in ISO 9001, right? To achieve a certain output, because customers need something, your interested parties have certain expectations. So that is the output that you are trying to achieve. So to achieve this output, you do your planning. And then you have clause number 7, which says support. Support is basically what kind of resources you need, what kind of machinery you need, how much budget do you need, what kind of infrastructure do you need, what education, what trainings, what qualifications you need in your people. So this is clause number 7, which is support. And coming to clause number 8, operation, this is the do part, right? You are actually implementing your activities, your business activities. This is clause number 7, clause number 8, sorry, operations. Coming to the check part, once you have done whatever you planned and whatever you did with the help of the support and your operational activities, you have to evaluate. So performance evaluation, you have employee performance evaluation, you have supplier performance evaluations, you have your objectives evaluations, results, you have your risks evaluation, right? So these are the evaluations that you do the check for. And your act, your last bit is the clause number 10, which is improvement. What improvements can you make so that the next cycle of planning is better? To support all of this, in the center, we have clause number 5, which is the leadership clause, which gives directions in all perspectives, right? It gives direction in the planning, it supports the infrastructure or provides the resources, it helps in the operations, it helps in the evaluations and making decisions, and it helps in improvement. Once you are through with all this entire thing, clause number 5 to clause number 10, this forms your quality management system or ISO 9001 to achieve your output of providing the intended products and services to your customers and achieving their satisfaction. So this is how you apply the PDCA cycle in ISO 9001 in your organizations. Now, these are the 10 requirements. We covered clause 5 to clause 10 in that. So there are a few more requirements. Clause number 0 is the introduction. Clause number 1 is the scope, normative references, terms and definitions. So clause number 0 to clause number 3, these are non-auditable clauses. You don't get audited for these clauses. They just describe what is ISO 9001 and what are some of the terms and definitions. Clause number 4 to clause number 10 is what you get audited on, and these lay the requirements of the standards. We'll cover these now. Introduction, scope, normative references, terms and definitions. Clause number 4 is where it all starts, the plan phase. It's called the context of the organization. Now it's further divided into 4 subclauses, which are on your screen. Basically, this clause is saying that you have to understand the environment of your operation. You have to understand what are your internal and external issues, who are your interested parties, what are their needs and expectations, and what are the locations or what are the processes that need to be included to achieve those expectations of your interested parties. And this is what the 4th clause is, or the first auditable clause. Clause number 5, leadership clause, it has 3 sub-clauses. In brief, it is talking about what are the responsibilities of the top management, what are the roles and responsibilities of all the other staff within the organization, what is the focus of the organization, right? And what are the policies of that organization to achieve the planned results. Clause number 6, also coming in the plan phase, is called, itself is called planning of the quality management system, and it has 3 subclauses. In brief, this clause talks about the context which you established in clause number 4, section 4, your internal and external issues, the interested parties that you understood, their expectations, the scopes and responsibilities which you defined in clause number 5. So how are you going to plan to achieve those expectations of the interested parties, those needs of the interested parties? So you have to identify what are your quality objectives, basically what are your targets, and which are the achievable opportunities. You have 10 opportunities lying in front of you, but only a few of them, only 4 of them are implementable within this year, within the resources that are available to you. So you have to lay down what is it that you can achieve, what are your quality objectives, and to achieve those objectives, what are the risks you are going to face, and how to control or minimize those risks, uncertainties. If ever there are changes beyond the planned changes, how are you going to deal with those changes? So this is what you define in clause number 6. Coming to the clause number 7, now there are 5 sub-clauses here. Sorry, just a second. There are 5 sub-clauses here. In brief, this clause talks about what are the resources that you are going to need. Now, within resources, you need people, you need infrastructure, you need environment to operate your processes, and you need equipments and resources to monitor and measure. You need knowledge for your resources, right? So this is what you define in clause number 7. And also you identify what are the competences in the people you need, what are the trainings, what are the skills, what are the qualifications you need in your people. Uh, are they aware of the policies, procedures, the way that RHS does work? Are they aware of their system? What are the communications you need to do? Like I was mentioning just now to Isaac's questions, to who all you need to communicate, customers, suppliers, employees, what you need to communicate, right? So you define your communication channels, methods, and topics. And lastly, the documented information. Now, documented information that whatever you do, you have to document. Right now, it doesn't mean that you have to print bundles and bundles of papers. It means that you keep a record of all the relevant information. Coming to Mr. Asif's question, decisions. Decisions are based on records, on facts, right? So to make decisions, you need to keep records. If you have to, let's say, for example, random example, if you have to give promotion to an employee, right? So you have to keep a record of what date he joined, how many previous promotions he has received, how many years he has spent in the organization, what has he contributed to the organization, right? What are his achievements? What are his skills? Does he need any more trainings? Is he able to perform the job that he has been recruited for? So a promotion cannot be just given based on he has completed 5 years or 10 years in the organization. It also needs to be based on, you know, what are his achievements, how has he helped in achieving the objectives of the organization, right? And what are his responsibilities in the organization? Has he fulfilled, or is he on a day-to-day basis fulfilling those responsibilities? So to answer that question, documented information is very important, and you have to define what is important to keep a record in the organization, right? On to clause number 8, which is the actual do section in the PDCA cycle. This is your operations. Now, the first section is that whatever, again, in operation itself, you will have the PDCA. So the first step in your do is actually again planning your operations and how are you going to control the loose ends and your uncertainties in your operations. The second subclause in operations is talking about what are the requirements for products and services. What do you need to communicate to your customers? What do you need as inputs from your suppliers? What are the changes? How are you going to handle the changes if the requirement of the product changes, right? Then clause number 3 within subclause 3 within the do operations is the design and development of products and services. So this clause is excluded in RHS group because you are not manufacturing any product, you're not designing any product. So that's why it's excluded. But it's an important clause for those organizations who manufacture products, who design products. Next clause is relating to your suppliers, controlling the externally provided products and services. So what kind of control are you going to have on your suppliers? What information do you need to provide to your suppliers is what is defined in clause number 8.4. Moving to clause number 8.5, it talks about how are you going to deliver your products and services, right? How, if ever you have to recall a product or a service, how are you going to trace it back? What inputs or properties did the customer provide you as an input? What do you have to preserve once you deliver your products and services? What are the post-delivery activities that you have to perform? If again changes happen, how do you control those changes? And clause number 8.6 talks about actually releasing your products and services to the customers. And clause number 8.7 talks about how do you control your non-conforming outputs, right? If you deliver by error or by mistake any product which does not meet the expectations of the customer, how do you control that product? Now, when I say product, it also means service. If you have not been able to meet the need or expectation of your customer, how do you handle that situation? So clause number 8.7 talks about that. Coming to the check phase in the plan, do, check cycle, clause number 9 talks about performance evaluations. So here, the first evaluation that for sure you have to do is your customer satisfaction. Very clearly and specifically, it has mentioned customer satisfaction needs to be evaluated, right? So customer feedback is very important. And if you are a department in the group, for example, the admin department or the IT department, your customers are the other business units. MRSA is your customer. Break Bulk Freight Services, Trident Freight, these are your customers. So you have to ensure that your customers, whether they are internal within the RHS group or they are external other organizations, B2B situation. So your customers are satisfied, and how do you ensure that they are satisfied? How do you know that they are satisfied? You take a feedback from them. So, or there are other ways as well. You monitor your revenues. Are they improving? You monitor your booking loads. Are they improving or are they declining? So those are the ways of knowing that your customers are satisfied and they are going to stick around with you and not going to look around in the market. Right, and other analysis and evaluations that you have to do are your suppliers' performance evaluations, your objectives, how much are you progressing in achieving your objectives, your risks, how much are they impacting your business. So these are the other kinds of analysis and evaluations that you have to do in your organization for at different points of time. Clause number 9.2 talks about internal audits, which we regularly do once or twice in a year. We check your all these clauses. How are you performing against all these clause number 4 to 10, and how are you implementing all the documented procedures? What are the evidences that we gather? So that is the internal audit clause. Clause number 9.3 is the management review, which we do once or twice a year, where we all gather as management team and we discuss our performances, we discuss our bottlenecks, our hindrances, problems, and we discuss our suggestions for improvement. Suggestion for improvements, that's your clause number 10, where we identify what were the customer complaints, what were the non-conforming products or services that went out of our organization, what are the internal audit non-conformities where we are not meeting the requirements of the ISO standard or other regulatory authorities, and how do we ensure that these things don't repeat in the future. So that is clause number 10.2, and clause number 10.3, the last requirement is how do we continually improve our organization and don't become stagnant. Right, so those are the 10 clauses or the requirements of ISO 9001 2015. Now, there are certain myths when you go through all these clauses, 10 requirements. The first thing that comes to people's mind is that there should be one person in the organization, the quality in charge or the safety in charge, uh, who should be handling all this. There should be a QC manager, QHSE person, or a ISO coordinator who should be handling all this. So, I'm sorry to bust this myth. It What ISO says that each person, like I said earlier, at in your own capacity, you are a leader. Each person or is a process owner, has a responsibility for which he has been hired in the organization. So quality or quality management system or ISO is the responsibility of each and every one in the organization, and not just the ISO coordinator or the quality department. Right? You have been hired in the organization for a certain purpose. So you have to ensure that you are achieving, you are fulfilling those requirements in the organization. So it's not the job of only the quality department, it's the job of every process owner in the organization. The next thing that comes to many of our minds is that we have to build bundles of documents, we have to prepare additional documents. Well, initially, yes, you have to prepare certain documents, but as you go along the years, you'll understand that these documents are a part of your daily life. Right, these documents are the ones who are helping you in making decisions. For example, if you continuously keep doing evaluations of your suppliers, over the years, you'll get to know that which are the suppliers who are actually performing well and supporting your operations, giving you speedy services so that you can give further speedy services to your customers. So, based on supplier evaluations is what you will be able to make a decision whether to continue with that supplier or not. So this is what is called an example of evidence-based decision making. So actually they are not additional documents that you have to prepare, but they are uh, helping you in your day-to-day operations and making decisions, whether short-term or long-term. Right, and nobody here has specified that these documents have to be printed. You can have soft copies on your system. You don't have to prepare box files after box files and keep recording records of 2015, records of 2016, records of 2017. No, you don't have to do that. You can maintain all your records, all your evidences, all your documents on your system itself, but please make sure you are coordinated with the IT department and there is a backup of all your data. Right, then as I was saying, linked to the first one, it is not a job of the middle management, managers of the top management. It's each and every person in the organization has to be involved. The next myth, we keep hearing that ISO implementation is very expensive. You have to buy a new software, you have to make so many documents, you have to pay the certification body, you have to pay the consultant. Well, think of it as an investment, think of it as an asset, right? You hire a tutor to help you in your studies. You buy a car to help you move from one place to the other, or you buy a good set of business suit to help you be a good presentable manager, right? So think of it as an investment and not that it's an expense. A management system is helping you in various ways to improve your business results. The last myth that we get is that there is a lot of stuff available on Google. Why do we need a consultant, or what is it that the certification body is going to help us for? Well, there's a lot of medical advice also on Google, and everything you search for, if you have a headache, if you have a stomach ache, everything leads to cancer. So it's not necessary that Google doctor is the best doctor. You have to, for certain conditions, you have to visit the actual doctor. So same like in this case as well. ISO, even though a lot of stuff is available on Google, you need an expert, a person with certain experience to help you and to assist you and to guide you, right, and consult you. So I hope I have clarified those myths. Coming to making ISO or quality management a success in your organization so that it helps you achieve the intended results for which you implemented ISO. I call it 4C Mars. So first C standing for commitment, very important at all levels. Every person down from the photocopy assistant or the person who makes tea to the top management, at all levels, we need a commitment for fulfilling the responsibilities for which we are hired in the organization. The next C is about cooperation. Cooperate with your colleagues, cooperate with your suppliers, with your interested parties. Communicate with all your interested parties. Be open, clarify things, right? Keep your ego aside and communicate. The fourth C, last C, is compliance. Become aware of what are the requirements so that you can ensure that you are complying to those requirements. Once you have these four, it's important to monitor whatever work you are doing, the checking part in the PDCA cycle, right? The link to that also is analysis. Keep on doing the analysis. You know, year after year, you keep taking feedback from the customers, but what is the analysis of that feedback, right? Is it a growing trend? Are your customers' satisfaction improving over the years, or is it declining, or is it stagnant at a plateau? In which category of the products are your customers satisfied? In which category of your customers not satisfied? So do a analysis, do a review of what needs to improve in the organization, what has become an old system and does not work for you anymore. So what targets you laid at the beginning of the year, are they still achievable by quarter 2? Do you need to revise your targets? So keep on reviewing that. And lastly, sustain. In these current situations, it's very difficult to sustain. So if it requires you to mend your ways, to bend down in front of a customer, do that. No issue. It's important that we sustain these times, these challenging times of the economy, right? And don't do that because I said it. Do that if the situation in your organization demands it, right? So these are the few critical success factors that make a quality management system help you in achieving, improving your revenues, in reducing your costs, in sustaining your business, right? Sorry. Now I'm going to post, that was the end of the presentation. So I'm going to post a form on the chat. I request you all to fill that form. And in the meantime, while you are filling this form, please feel free to unmute and ask me your questions, if there are any. So I'm posting the link to the feedback form on the chat. Please click on that link and it's an online form. You can give me a feedback for that, for this training. Thank you very much. That's it from my side. This feedback form is a mandatory form. It's not optional. You have to fill this. It counts towards your training records, your lifetime in the organization, what all trainings you have received. So please fill this form. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask me any questions that you might have. On the screen, I'm also displaying my contact details. I request everybody to please unmute their mics.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Asif, any questions?
No question. No. Anything, we'll let you know.
Thank you. Please fill this feedback form. The link I have posted on the chat of this MS Teams. Everybody, please fill this form. Please click on the link that is there in the chat. Sorry, where is the link? The link is in the chat. If you just open the chat for the training for the MS Teams, you will see the link. Has everybody been able to get the link?
Yeah, but it is formatted in Arabic form.
Okay. Okay.
But typing.
Maybe I think your Google needs to be signed in. It's a Google form, so you can sign into your Google and then fill it.
Okay.
RHS Abu Dhabi, any questions? Trident Freight, any questions?
No.
Admin, RHS admin department, any questions?
No, ma'am. No questions.
RHS logistics, any questions?
Right now, no.
Thank you. Okay, so I suppose everybody's been able to access the form. If not, let me know. I will send it to you on email.
It was accessible and done.
Thank you.
So we will get any document on this one, or
What document, Prashant? What do you need?
means any certificate will be issued, or it will be recorded as a training document?
Yeah, we will record it as a training that has been given in your employee records. So we will be recording this training has been given to you. This is just an awareness session. For this, we don't issue any certificates. All right, everybody, thank you very much for your time. Please feel free if you have any questions to reach out to me. And do fill this training review form so that it gets recorded in your employee file. If you do not fill this form, it will not get recorded in your employee file. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.